Hello and welcome to the 44th episode of Jazzology presented by Savage Content. I'm your host, Willard Jenkins. We're here alternating Fridays giving two jazz fans the opportunity to compete against each other for a chance to win a $100 prize. Each contestant will be asked a question worth 2 points. If they're unable to answer correctly, their opponent will have a chance to steal the question for 1 point. We'll ask 10 questions, and at the end of the 10 questions, the person with the lowest score will get a bonus question for the opportunity to tie the score, and that's no matter how far they're behind. If they're successful, the game will go to sudden death. The person in the lead at the end of regulation will go first, and each contestant will take turns trying to answer the sudden death multiple choice question until we have a winner. And now let's meet this week's contestants. Our reigning Jazzology champion is Ben Young, who has been involved in jazz since the early 1990s. Close to my heart, programming on New York's WKCR, yes, Jazz Radio, teaching at Jazz at Lincoln Center, and researching for publications of music across the spectrum of jazz. Ben Young is currently the director of the Jazz History Database at WPI in Worcester, Massachusetts, and is the author of the forthcoming biography, A New Energy, Cause and Consequence in the Musical Career of Cecil Taylor. Are you ready to meet your challenger, Ben?
Yes, Willard.
All right. Well, our challenger for this 44th episode of Jazzology is Brad Stone. Brad is a over 40 years, a longtime jazz radio programmer, producer, and host. He has worked at several university and community radio stations as a music director, faculty advisor, instructor, and on-air host. Brad Stone lives in Gilroy, California, the garlic capital of America, in the San Francisco Bay, Monterey Bay, North Central Coast area. Brad always likes to say that he is not a jazz expert, but that he has some expertise. Brad considers himself a lifelong student of the music. So, Brad, are you ready to play Jazzology?
I am quite ready, and I'm after listening to Ben's bio, I'm quite intimidated, but I'll give it my best shot.
Well, don't be intimidated. Don't be intimidated. We're having some fun here. We're not trying to intimidate anybody.
There you go.
So
Absolutely.
let's get to today's Jazzology questions. And as our reigning champion, Ben Young goes first. Ben, a recent series of live performance Ahmad Jamal trio recordings was unearthed and subsequently released by the jazz detective, producer Zev Feldman. Those Ahmad Jamal trio recordings were captured at which of the following venues? Was it A, the Village Vanguard, B, the Jazz Showcase, C, Baker's Keyboard Lounge, D, the Village Gate, or E, the Penthouse? Which of those venues were these recordings captured at?
Yeah. You can tell I don't know, so I'm going to take a stab at it. I'm not familiar with that project yet, but it sounds like a good one. I might be speaking a little bit wishfully also. I'm going to say there's been a lot of excavation lately that's showed forth a bunch of music from the Jazz Showcase. And that's a reasonable spot for Jamal to be in a lot. So I'm going to go with B, the Jazz Showcase.
That is incorrect, Ben. So now Brad, and see, I'm looking at Brad, and the look on Brad's face says he knows the answer. We'll see. Brad, a recent series of live performance Ahmad Jamal trio recordings was unearthed and subsequently released by the jazz detective, producer Zev Feldman. These Ahmad Jamal Trio recordings were captured at which of the following venues? A, the Village Vanguard, and B, the Jazz Showcase in Chicago has been eliminated. C, Baker's Keyboard Lounge. D, the Village Gate. E, the Penthouse.
Well, I'm going to have to confess that you can see
I can
those
see the
CDs
recordings right over your shoulder.
were right over my shoulder. So I definitely know the answer to that. It's E, the Penthouse.
The Penthouse in Seattle, Washington is exactly where that particular that latest release, and this is the second of recordings that Zev Feldman has unearthed that recorded live at the Penthouse, which apparently was a club that Ahmad Jamal greatly favored and played on an annual basis. So Brad Stone steals the point on that. Brad, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, Brad. Who was pianist Alice Coltrane, then known as Alice MacLeod? Who was Alice Coltrane performing with when she met her future husband, John Coltrane? Was she recording with A, Yusef Lateef, B, Terry Gibbs, C, Dorothy Ashby, D, Donald Byrd, or E, Hank Mobley?
Oh boy, this is tough. I feel like I should know the answer. I think something tells me she had some kind of playing relationship with Terry Gibbs. But my initial reaction was Yusef. So I think I'm going to go with A, Yusef Lateef.
That is incorrect. And Ben has an opportunity to steal the point and tie the score. So Ben, who was pianist Alice MacLeod, later to become Alice Coltrane? Who was she performing with when she met her future husband, John Coltrane? A, Yusef Lateef has been eliminated. B, Terry Gibbs. C, Dorothy Ashby. D, Donald Byrd. Or E, Hank Mobley?
I think I'm going to go with the one that Brad left behind with Terry Gibbs, answer B.
That is correct. That is correct. And you know, I could see from your facial expression that's where you were going to go with that. But that is correct.
I'm sorry to hear that it's that obvious.
It was Terry Gibbs, who Alice MacLeod, later to become Alice Coltrane, was playing with when John Coltrane first met Alice MacLeod. So Ben, you're up next. Then Terry Lynn Carrington was awarded top drummer and top jazz group in this year's annual Downbeat Magazine Critics Poll. Terry Lynn made her recording debut as a leader at what age? Was it A, 12, B, 14, C, 15, D, 18, or E, 16?
Oh boy. Willard, those numbers are pretty close together.
Yeah, they are. And purposely so.
Yep. I'm going to confess again that I don't know the answer to this one explicitly, but it's going to be a remarkable number, whatever it is. I will say, I think I'm going with E, that she was 16.
And that is correct. Terry Lynn Carrington made her debut recording TLC and Friends at age 16 with George Coleman, Kenny Barron, Buster Williams, and her dad on tenor saxophone, Sonny Carrington. So, I mean, how formidable is that to be able to make your debut with a cast of musicians like that? Good Lord. No wonder she's as great as she is now to start off that way.
Yeah.
Well, Brad, you're up next. Brad, flutist, composer, band leader, and educator, Nicole Mitchell was the chair of jazz studies and professor of music at which of the following institutions? Was it A, University of California, Irvine, B, University of Chicago, C, University of Virginia, D, University of Illinois, Chicago, or E, University of Pittsburgh?
Well, as a Chicago native, and I know that Nicole has lived in Chicago for a long time, based upon that, I'm going to narrow it down to B or D, but I'm an alumnus of the University of Illinois, Chicago. I don't think it was there because I think I would have known that. So I'm going to go with B, University of Chicago.
That is incorrect, Brad. And now Ben will have an opportunity to steal the point. Ben, flutist, composer, band leader, and educator, Nicole Mitchell was the chair of jazz studies and professor of music at which institution? Would that have been A, University of California, Irvine? B, the University of Chicago has been eliminated. C, the University of Virginia. D, the University of Illinois, Chicago, or E, the University of Pittsburgh?
It's another great question, Willard, mostly because I want to learn what the answer is. I do not know it yet. I'm not feeling...
You're going to take a stab at it, right?
Yeah, I'm going to take a stab at it. For some reason, I've got a strange pull toward Virginia, and I'm quite surprised if it's true or false, but I'm going to say I'll stay with C, University of Virginia.
That, too, is incorrect. But that was a good call, though, Ben, because Nicole Mitchell is currently at the University of Virginia. But she was the chair of jazz studies at the University of Pittsburgh. She, in fact, succeeded Jerry Allen in that particular chair. All right, Ben, your turn up. Vibraphonist Red Norvo played on whose 1945 Carnegie Hall concert debut? Would that have been A, Mildred Bailey, B, Woody Herman's First Heard, C, the Tal Farlow Band, D, Frank Sinatra, or E, Charles Mingus?
Very interesting. In 45, Mingus and Farlow, I believe, were not yet present in New York. Frank Sinatra, I'm not sure is a real contender. Now, I'm trying to figure out, Willard, Red Norvo definitely was on the Woody Herman concert at Carnegie March 25th of 1946.
Oh, my goodness.
But I don't know about a 1945 one. And it seems 45 seems a little late for Mildred Bailey to be making her debut there. I'm winging it again, but I'm going to go with Woody Herman, answer B.
That is correct. That is correct. He made that concert with the Woody Herman's First Heard in 1945. Jazzology is brought to you by Savage Content. Savage Content is building music, art, and creative content for the soul, spirit, and empowerment. This week's spotlight is on an exclusive video of a group of legendary multi-Grammy-winning musicians sharing stories and insights. That includes Ramsey Lewis, sits with two genre-defining blues artists, guitarist and singer Robert Cray, and singer-songwriter guitarist Kip Moe, as they talk about how they got started and what the blues means to them. It's a special moment and a prelude to a performance soon to be released. Visit Savage Content to watch this interview, as well as exclusive performances, interviews, and past Jazzology trivia shows. And our Jazzology recording of the week. Let me see if I can pull it out here. Our Jazzology recording of the week is Nefertiti. Nefertiti, which is a tribute to Wayne Shorter and is the 2023 release as part of the annual record release policy of the Howard University Jazz Ensemble right here in Washington, D.C., under the direction of Professor Fred Irby III, who is retiring after 50 years at the helm of this wonderful program, the Howard University Jazz Ensemble. And Nefertiti is their 2023 release. And now it's time to ask our Jazzology contestants our favorite question. You've already been this route, Ben, so we'll start with Brad. Brad, how did you fall in love with jazz?
I would first say my mom. She had records in the house. And I always say that she wasn't really so much a jazz fan, but she was a fan of the crooners and vocalists. So she had a lot of the crooners around, people like John Gary and Andy Williams, but she also had Nat Cole and Ella Fitzgerald and Tony Bennett. So she loved the singers. We had some other records too. We had Herb Alpert and the Tijuana Brass. So as a kid, I wore those records out. So I got that early exposure to jazz. And then also an important factor was television, because, Nat Cole had his variety show for, a couple of years on. And programs like The Tonight Show with Steve Allen, and he would have guests on, jazz musicians. I remember the Bill Evans Trio, and I was just transfixed in front of the television. I knew that I didn't understand the music, but I knew that I was definitely drawn to it and intrigued.
Yeah, you knew it was something that was catching your attention.
Absolutely, and I knew it was something I wanted to explore more. And then other, television shows like Ed Sullivan, would have guest artists on. Like I distinctly remember Louis Armstrong. So having that early exposure, at an early age, I think was key. And it's one of the reasons I'm really passionate about, exposing young people to this great music, because I do feel like even if they don't fully appreciate or understand the music initially, if they're exposed to it, maybe later on in life they will come back to it.
Later on it will click, right? Exposure being the key. I certainly appreciate that. Now, Ben, you're someone who works in jazz as an archivist and as a radio person and whatnot. What is it about jazz that keeps you excited and stimulated?
Oh, man. Well, to be honest, since you bring up the archival part, I think some of it, and I guess relative to your question from a second ago about that new Ahmad Jamal release, there's something about the jazz history part looking for stuff that's been lost or that we haven't heard yet. Looking for the sound you haven't heard yet is a part of the excitement of the quest. That's really not, it's not a great answer for like the music in general, but from my sort of particular, what do you call it, warpage of career, I think that's a large part of it is, you know, digging for the new.
The continued pursuit.
Yes.
All right. Well, Brad, you're up next. You ready?
I am ready.
All right. Brad, the great Afro-Cuban band leader and trumpeter Mario Bauza met Dizzy Gillespie and mentored him in Afro-Cuban rhythms when both were members of whose orchestra? Would that have been A, Billie Holiday, B, Billy Eckstine, C, Frankie Fairfax, E, Cab Calloway, or E, Earl Hines?
Well, the answer that I thought it was isn't one of the five. So I'm going to go with a gut feeling here and say B, Billy Eckstine.
Nope, that's incorrect. Ben with a chance to steal the point. Ben, the great Afro-Cuban band leader and trumpeter Mario Bauza, Dizzy Gillespie, and mentored him in Afro-Cuban rhythms when both were members of whose orchestra? Would that have been A, Billie Holiday, B, Billy Eckstine has been eliminated, C, Frankie Fairfax, D, Cab Calloway, or E, Earl Hines?
Willard, I love that you put Frankie Fairfax on the list, but I'm pretty sure that they were both in the trumpet section of Cab Calloway's band. D.
That is correct. It was in Cab Calloway's band, where Dizzy famously lobbed spitballs at Cab Calloway on the bandstand, which was one reason he was fired. All right, Ben, your turn again.
Okay.
Ben, alto saxophonist Emmanuel Wilkins is one of the rising young musicians in jazz. Where did Emmanuel Wilkins grow up and learn music? Was it A, Detroit, B, Philadelphia, C, Brooklyn, D, Manhattan, or E, Chicago?
Oh man, I'm failing a different reading comprehension quiz, Willard, because I remember reading the article about Wilkins when he was on the cover of Downbeat. I think it was last year, and have not retained the information. I don't think he's from the greater New York area, though it's funny that you put both boroughs in there. I don't actually think this is right, but I'm going to say Philadelphia.
Well, that was a great guess because indeed Emmanuel Wilkins came up in Philadelphia. And that was the correct answer. And Ben is up 8-1, Brad. It's time to play some catch up. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I think I might need that final question.
That's why it's there.
Okay, Brad. Baritone saxophonist Claire Daly's current record release includes contributions from which of the following tenor saxophonists? Is it A, Joe Lovano, B, George Garzone, C, Chris Potter, D, Marcus Strickland, or E, Nicole Glover?
Well, I'm pretty sure I know this answer because I was playing this record on my radio program, And I'm pretty certain that it's B, George Garzone.
That is correct. Claire Daly invited the veteran tenor saxophonist out of Boston, George Garzone, to participate in her latest recording. So Brad scores 2 more points. Your turn, Ben.
All right.
Trombonist Bob Brookmeyer played in which of the following big bands? Was it A, the Gil Evans Orchestra, B, Cannonball Adderley and his orchestra, C, the Chubby Jackson Big Band, D, the George Russell Orchestra, or was it E, all of the above?
All right. Interesting question. Well, the Cannonball Adderley part gives away what I guess is confirmed by the other things, that these are record dates more than actually having a job in a steady band. And that's true for Brookmeyer's period in general. I do think he's on a George Russell record. And I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say perhaps he's on records by all of these cats. So I'll take E, all of the above.
And you are correct. Bob Brookmeyer did indeed play with all of those orchestras, all those big bands. Brad, for which of the following saxophonists will the year 2024 be the centennial of his birth? A, Eric Dolphy, B, James Moody, C, Sam Rivers, D, Gene Ammons, or E, Sonny Stitt?
Oh my. Seems like there could be several answers here. I don't think Eric Dolphy would have been that old yet. So I'm going to eliminate that one. Oh. I think it could, and I think James Moody, I don't think he would have been that old yet. So I'm just going to go out on a limb here, take a guess between the other three and say Sam Rivers.
Ben with a chance to steal the point. That was incorrect. It is not Sam Rivers. Ben, for which of the following saxophonists will 2024 be the centennial of his birth? A, Eric Dolphy, B, James Moody, and actually 2023 is the centennial of the birth of Sam Rivers, but Sam has been eliminated. D, Gene Ammons, or E, Sonny Stitt?
Well, there's a couple here I don't know, but I do know that February 2nd of next year is Sonny Stitt's centennial. So I'm going with E, Sonny Stitt.
That is correct. That is correct. And, the program director at my station here in D.C., WPFW, is none other than Katia Stitt, Sonny Stitt's daughter. So Sonny Stitt, 2024 will be the centennial of the birth of Sonny Stitt. So Brad, you got some huge catch up to do, but you can do that on this bonus round question. Our bonus question for Brad: which of the following jazz vocalists also has an active jazz musician brother? Would that be A, Gretchen Parlato, B, Faye Victor, C, Tierney Sutton, D, Catherine Russell, or E, Carmen Lundy?
Well, I think that you threw me a bit of a softball here on this one because it's E. Carmen Lundy.
That is correct. Carmen Lundy's brother, Curtis Lundy, was a very fine bassist and prominent musician in this music. So now we go to sudden death. And Ben will be up first since he was our leader going into the bonus round. You ready, Ben, for this sudden death?
Let's see.
All right. Ben, which of the following National Endowment for the Arts jazz master pianists toured and recorded with the late saxophonist and instrument innovator Eddie Harris? Was that A, Muhal Richard Abrams, B, Amina Claudine Myers, C, Ahmad Jamal, D, Joanne Brackeen, or E, Randy Weston?
Wow, that's a good question. I'm looking forward to learning the answer for sure. Weston's out of the picture. If it's Joanne Brackeen, I don't know about it. Jamal wouldn't quite make sense. I think their age differences are a little bit much for him to be the sideman with Eddie Harris. I like that it could have been Amina, but I know that Muhal's on a bunch of things in that same period, the MJT +3 and others. And if I miss it, I know our Chicago man is going to nail it. So here we go. I'm sticking with Muhal Richard Abrams, A.
That is correct. That is correct. It was indeed Muhal Richard Abrams. And so, Ben, you win again. Ben continues as our champion. Congratulations to Ben and to Brad. Congratulations to Ben on winning our 44th episode of Jazzology, and to Brad for being such a good sport and competing on Jazzology. We encourage each and every one of you to try your hand and play Jazzology. And if anyone would like to become a contestant on Jazzology, click the box below and simply fill out the form. You must be 18 years old or older, and be sure to follow us on social media at Jazzology Trivia Show to get all the latest news and updates. Thanks so much to Ben Young, our continuing champion, and to Brad Stone, our very worthy contestant and competitor, and to everyone who joined us for our 44th episode of Jazzology today. Remember, you can check out Jazzology every other Friday at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and if you miss the show live, you can find the archive on the Savage Content YouTube channel. See you next time.